Why is it that the smartest, most self-aware people stay trapped in relationships that are slowly killing their spirit? You're about to discover the 3 hidden signs that everyone misses. But here's the thing. The third sign is so counterintuitive that it completely changes how you think about love itself. But you need to understand the first 2 or the third one won't make sense. If you're here, you're probably lying awake at night, questioning everything. The person next to you breathes softly while you stare at the ceiling, wondering if you're being dramatic or if your gut is screaming something you're afraid to hear. You've been asking yourself the same question for months, maybe years. Is it time to leave? But here's what no one tells you about this decision. There's a specific psychological trap that keeps intelligent people stuck longer than everyone else. And once you understand this trap, you'll never look at your relationship the same way again. Let me start with the first sign, and this one's going to surprise you because it's not what you think. The first sign isn't fighting or cheating or obvious red flags. It's something much more subtle and far more dangerous. The first sign is that you've stopped bringing your full self to the relationship. Think about it. When did you last share a dream without editing it first? When did you last express excitement about something without wondering how they'd react? You've learned to curate yourself, to present only the parts that won't create friction. But here's the deadly part about this sign. It doesn't feel like a red flag because it feels like maturity. You tell yourself you're being considerate, that you're picking your battles. But what you're really doing is slowly disappearing from your own relationship. And the scariest part? They might not even notice because they've gotten used to this edited version of you. This connects directly to the second sign, which is even more insidious because it masquerades as something positive. The second sign is that you've become addicted to their potential instead of accepting their reality. You're not in love with who they are right now. You're in love with who they could become if they just worked on their communication, if they just appreciated you more, if they just understood what you need. You're staying for conversations that might happen, for the connection you used to have, for the person you glimpsed in those early months. But here's what's really happening. You're not in a relationship anymore, you're in a rehabilitation project. And rehabilitation projects aren't partnerships. They're one-sided investments that will drain you until there's nothing left. This is why smart people stay stuck. They can see the potential so clearly that they mistake it for progress. They think, if I just communicate better, if I just love them more, if I just give it more time. But potential without consistent action is just a beautiful lie you tell yourself to avoid making hard decisions. Now, before I reveal the third sign, I need you to understand something crucial. These first 2 signs create a compound effect. When you're editing yourself and chasing potential, you lose touch with what a healthy relationship actually feels like. You forget the partnership should energize you more than they drain you. Which brings us to the third sign, and this one's going to flip everything you think you know about love. Ready? The third sign is that you've started measuring your relationship by what's wrong with you instead of what's wrong with the dynamic. Listen carefully. In healthy relationships, problems feel external. We need to figure out our communication. We should work on our schedules. The focus is on solving things together. But in dying relationships, problems feel internal. I'm too sensitive. I expect too much. I need to be more grateful. You've stopped asking whether this relationship serves you and started asking whether you deserve to be served. You've turned the microscope inward, analyzing your own flaws, your own unrealistic expectations, your own inability to just be happy with what you have. But here's the devastating truth about this psychological shift. It's not insight. It's not self-awareness. It's learned helplessness dressed up as personal growth. You've been gaslit so subtly, so consistently, that you've started gaslighting yourself. Think about your last few arguments. Did they end with solutions or with you apologizing for having needs? Did they result in changes or in you promising to be less demanding? If you're constantly the one adjusting, adapting, understanding, then you're not in a partnership. You're in a one-person relationship. Now here's why this third sign is so dangerous. It makes leaving feel impossible because you've convinced yourself that the problem is you. You think, if I can just fix myself, the relationship will work. But what if the relationship isn't supposed to work? What if some people are simply incompatible and no amount of self-improvement will change that? But I haven't told you the most important part yet. There's a simple test that cuts through all the confusion, all the analysis, all the second guessing. And this test will give you clarity in less than 30 seconds. But first, you need to understand why your current approach to this decision is completely backwards. You're trying to logic your way through an emotional decision. You're making lists of pros and cons, analyzing whether your expectations are reasonable, wondering if you're giving up too easily. But here's what you're missing. The fact that you're repeatedly asking this question is often the answer you're afraid to hear. When was the last time you obsessively wondered whether you should keep a job you loved? When did you last spend sleepless nights questioning whether you should maintain a friendship that filled you with joy? We don't repeatedly question things that genuinely serve us. So here's the test, and I want you to really think about this. Imagine your best friend describing your exact situation to you. Same problems, same patterns, same excuses. What would you tell them? Would you encourage them to stay with someone who makes them question their worth? Would you tell them to keep investing in someone who doesn't seem invested back? You already know what you'd tell your friend. And that clarity you have for other people's situations, it exists for yours too. It's just buried under layers of fear and obligation and the stories you tell yourself about what love is supposed to look like. But here's what I want you to understand, and this might be the most important thing you hear today. Leaving doesn't make you a failure. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to choose growth over comfort. It makes you someone who understands that love sometimes means setting each other free to find what you both actually need. And if you're worried about hurting them, consider this. Staying in a relationship you don't want to be in isn't kindness. It's not protection. It's robbing both of you of the opportunity to find something real and mutual and energizing. The courage to leave isn't about being certain you're making the right choice. It's about being honest about the choice you're already making every day you stay. Because staying when you don't want to be there is also a choice. It's a choice to accept less than what you need. You already know what you need to do. Your intuition has been trying to tell you for months. The question isn't whether you should leave. The question is whether you're ready to trust yourself enough to do what you already know needs to be done. Trust yourself. You know what you need to do.